The day everything changed. Ethan Reynolds had already known the sting of heartbreak once before. Years earlier, he was a young husband, convinced he was building a lifetime with the woman he'd chosen to marry. That dream crumbled when his wife, Melissa, met a soldier on leave at a restaurant and vanished from his life without warning. She left Ethan and their 3-year-old son, Caleb, as if they were little more than a forgotten obligation. One evening she had been laughing over dinner, teasing him as though nothing was amiss. The next, she was simply gone. No fight, no explanation. Only a note and silence. The abandonment cut Ethan so deeply that he swore never to put his heart in anyone's hands again. Instead, he focused entirely on raising Caleb and running his modest children's learning center, a project he had built after leaving the corporate grind. Love, to him, became a dusty book locked away on a forgotten shelf. But life rarely obeys such vows. It began on a crisp spring afternoon in the city park. Ethan had taken Caleb, now 12, thoughtful beyond his years, for ice cream after school. As they walked past the benches, Ethan's gaze landed on a young woman sitting alone, her shoulders hunched and her cheeks streaked with tears. She didn't look frail physically, but as though the weight of the world had worn down her spirit. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, softly, he asked, "Are you all right?" That was the moment he met Claire Whitman. Claire was 23, freshly graduated, her arms full of degrees, certificates, and glowing recommendations. Yet every application ended the same way: "You're bright, but we need someone with more experience." It didn't matter how many internships she had completed or how committed she was to her craft. She felt invisible, rejected at every turn. As she told Ethan about her latest failed interview, he listened with a patience and kindness she hadn't expected. Meanwhile, Caleb slipped away into a nearby cafe. When he returned, he carried a small sketch he had made, a cheerful drawing of a girl with a sunbeam smile. He handed it to Claire silently. She laughed through her tears and held the paper as if it were something precious. Something shifted in that moment for both Ethan and Claire. Though she wasn't qualified to teach at his center, Ethan needed help with administrative work. He offered her a temporary position. Claire accepted immediately. She was broke, alone in a new city, and desperate for more than just a paycheck. What he gave her felt like a lifeline. Over the next months, Ethan found himself drawn to her. Claire was intelligent, kind, and persistent. He began bringing her croissants in the morning, or setting a cup of coffee on her desk just the way she liked it. What she returned wasn't only gratitude, it was admiration, warmth, and something quietly deeper. Eventually, Ethan asked her to dinner. Claire said yes, without hesitation. Truthfully, she had fallen for him the very day they met, when he chose compassion instead of indifference. Their relationship blossomed quickly. Within 6 months, they were living together. A year later, Ethan proposed. Even he was surprised at the certainty in his heart, considering how much he had once sworn against love. Claire had revived a part of him he thought was gone forever. Years slipped by. Caleb was now a high school senior, preparing for college out of state. His bond with Claire, now his stepmother, was genuine and affectionate. She never tried to replace his mother, but became a nurturing figure he respected. The learning center thrived as well. Claire worked beside Ethan, and when they expanded to a second location, she stepped in to manage it. Although her original dream had been a career in communications, she discovered unexpected purpose in shaping young minds and running the center. She was firm but compassionate, a natural leader. Yet, her responsibilities often kept her working late, especially with older students' evening programs like creative writing. That was how she met Ryan Hall. Ryan was 26, a new English instructor with charm to spare. At first, Claire simply admired his teaching. He was engaging, confident, and talented. But admiration soon slipped into attraction, an attraction she despised herself for feeling. She was married to the man who had pulled her from despair, yet thoughts of Ryan clouded her mind whenever he was near. And Ryan, for his part, wasn't blind to it. Ryan sensed Claire's wavering boundaries and leaned into them. He began offering compliments that lingered, brushing against her in subtle ways, and asking about her day with a level of focus that felt disarmingly intimate. One evening, as they locked up the center, he kissed her.
Claire didn't resist.
Instead, she kissed him back. That moment set off a slow, dangerous unraveling. Their affair wasn't constant, but when it happened, it awakened something reckless inside her. She told herself it was only chemistry, a fleeting spark that would eventually burn out. But each stolen kiss chipped away at her loyalty to Ethan. At home, her patience dwindled. Ethan, absorbed in his newest business expansion, seemed worn out and distracted. Against Ryan's youth and energy, Ethan came across as tired, dull, and perpetually drained. The contrast only fed Claire's resentment. Ethan noticed the shift. The tenderness she once showed him had hardened into coldness. She grew irritable without reason, distant without explanation. When he asked what was wrong, she brushed it aside. Still, a quiet unease stirred inside him, a whisper of doubt he tried not to hear. That doubt turned to certainty one afternoon. While waiting for a business partner in his office, Ethan had a strange impulse. He logged into the security cameras at the center Claire managed. It was late. Classes should have been wrapping up. Yet the classrooms were empty. Curious, he cycled through the feeds until he found them. Claire and Ryan, tangled in the back room. The sight knocked the breath from his chest. His hand trembled as he hit record. When the footage was saved, he collapsed into his chair, burying his face in his hands, his fury so sharp and cold it felt like ice in his veins. That night, Ethan said nothing. He greeted Claire when she came home, allowed her to kiss his cheek, even exchanged small talk. But in his mind, the images replayed endlessly. As he lay awake beside her, a plan began to form. At first it felt cruel. Then it felt necessary. He arranged a private celebration, supposedly a toast to the success of his new venture. He told Claire it would be a surprise party. Behind the scenes, however, he coordinated with the staff to ensure a particular video would play at just the right moment. A video stored on a single USB drive. The evening came. Claire arrived in a soft blue dress, chatting cheerfully about Caleb's latest college updates. She smiled, laughed, even squeezed Ethan's hand. She had no idea what was coming. When the time arrived, Ethan stood with his glass raised. He spoke of trust, of love, of truth. And then the screens lit up. There it was, the footage from the cameras. Claire froze, her face draining to ash. Gasps filled the room. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she bolted, fleeing the hall. The aftermath was brutal. Their divorce spiraled into open war. Claire tried to sabotage Ethan's business negotiations. When that failed, she swung between apologizing, begging, and threatening. None of it moved him. Caleb severed ties with her entirely, revolted by her betrayal. Ryan, seeing the chaos he had helped ignite, cut and ran. He blocked Claire, disappeared from the city, and never returned to the center. In the end, Claire was left utterly alone. She rented a small apartment, her nights consumed by memories of what she had destroyed. She often thought back to that park bench years ago, when Ethan had asked if she was okay. That was the day she found everything: compassion, stability, love, a second chance. And with one reckless choice, she had thrown it all away. There was no path back.